Dr. Marcus Hale adjusted his oxygen mask as he ventured deeper into the jagged canyon. The desolate planet, known only as Sci-Fi 12, had long been abandoned by explorers due to its harsh environment. For Marcus, a researcher driven by curiosity, the uncharted terrain was irresistible. Rumors of strange energy readings had led him here, and his gut told him this discovery would be worth it. The wind howled through the narrow passages, carrying faint whispers of sound. At first, Marcus thought it was just the wind playing tricks on his ears. But then he heard it, a soft, melodic hum. It was out of place in the barren silence, and it drew him forward like a beacon. Rounding a corner, he froze. A woman stood in the shadow of a jagged rock formation, her figure illuminated by the faint glow of her skin. She wasn't human. Her delicate features, shimmering silver hair, and glowing violet eyes marked her as something otherworldly. She looked ethereal, almost fragile, yet her posture radiated strength. "Who are you?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite his racing heart. The woman turned sharply, her eyes narrowing as if sizing him up. "You need to leave," she said, her voice firm yet melodic. "This place is not safe for your kind." Marcus raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I mean no harm. I'm just exploring." "You're trespassing," she snapped. "Leave now, human, before it's too late." Her warning didn't scare Marcus. It intrigued him. He took a cautious step forward, trying to appear non-threatening. "Wait. Are you alone here? Why are you hiding?" The woman hesitated, her expression flickering between anger and something softer. "Fear, perhaps. You don't understand what you've stumbled into," she said, her voice lowering. "Your presence here endangers both of us." Marcus tilted his head. "Then help me understand. I've come across strange energy signatures on this planet. Is it connected to you?" Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise breaking through her guarded demeanor. "You shouldn't have followed those signals. They'll attract attention, dangerous attention." Before Marcus could ask more, a faint, rhythmic hum filled the air. It wasn't natural. It was mechanical. The woman stiffened, her glowing eyes scanning the horizon. "They're coming," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Who's coming?" Marcus asked, his voice laced with urgency. She turned to him, her expression grim. "The Syndicate. They'll kill anything that stands in their way, including you." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He had no idea what he had walked into. But one thing was clear. He couldn't leave her here alone. "Then let's get out of here," he said, his voice firm. "You don't have to face them by yourself." The woman stared at him, disbelief flickering in her eyes. "You don't even know me," she said quietly. "Why would you risk your life for a stranger?" Marcus offered a small, determined smile. "Because it's the right thing to do." The faint hum grew louder, signaling the arrival of an unknown threat. Marcus didn't know what was coming, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't leave her behind. The air grew tense as Marcus and the mysterious woman, whom he had yet to properly name, ran through the rocky terrain, trying to distance themselves from the oncoming threat. The distant hum of engines reached his ears, growing louder with each passing moment. His mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle. Who were these people, and why was she so afraid of them? The woman moved swiftly, her glowing eyes scanning the landscape. Despite the urgency, there was a calmness in her movements, as if she had faced danger like this before. Marcus couldn't help but be impressed by her composure. He caught up to her, his breath heavy. "Who are they?" "The ones chasing us." The woman's face hardened as she looked back at him. "They are known as the Syndicate, a ruthless group of mercenaries and criminals. They don't care who they hurt as long as they get what they want." Marcus felt a chill in his spine. "What do they want with you?" She glanced at him, her expression pained. "They want my life. But it's not just that. They want something much more dangerous." Her voice dropped, becoming barely a whisper. "Something I carry." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean, something you carry? What is it?" She hesitated for a long moment, Her eyes clouded with a mixture of fear and sorrow. Finally, she spoke, her voice tight. "I'm not from this planet. I'm not even from this galaxy." Marcus stopped in his tracks. "What are you saying?" She turned to him, her violet eyes locking onto his. "I'm part of a race of beings who possess the ability to manipulate energy. My people are not meant to be known to your kind. The Syndicate wants that power." Marcus stared at her, trying to understand. "So, they're hunting you because of what you are." Her eyes glistened with a deep sadness. "It's not just because of what I am, but because of what I've become. I have something inside of me, a power I can't control. The Syndicate believes they can use it to take over entire worlds." Marcus's mind spun. He had heard stories of alien species with extraordinary abilities, but this was something else. "How did you end up here?" The woman sighed, looking away. "I was sent here as part of a diplomatic mission, but things went wrong. My people betrayed me, and I was left stranded on this forsaken planet. I've been hiding ever since, trying to keep the Syndicate from finding me." Marcus was silent for a moment, processing her words. It didn't make sense. Why would her people betray her? And why was she so willing to hide away in isolation? But as the sound of engines grew louder, the moment for questions ended. The woman grabbed his arm and pulled him toward a narrow cave hidden behind a cluster of rocks. "They're almost here. We have to go now," she urged. Marcus followed her into the cave, his heart racing. "Are you sure we'll be safe here?" She nodded, though her face remained tense. "For now, but not for long." As they ducked into the cave, Marcus realized that everything he thought he knew about this planet, and about her, was only the beginning of a much bigger story. He had never expected his simple exploration mission to lead him into a fight for his life, and he had certainly never expected to be involved in a struggle between galaxies. But now, there was no turning back. The cave was small, its walls slick with moisture, and the faint light from Marcus's flashlight barely cut through the darkness. He and the woman, whose name he still didn't know, sat in tense silence, listening to the growing hum of engines outside. The air felt thick, as though every breath was loaded with the weight of danger. Marcus wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, his nerves on edge. His thoughts raced, trying to make sense of everything. The Syndicate, her mysterious powers, the betrayal, and the dangerous secret she carried. It was all more than he had ever signed up for. The woman, however, remained calm. Her eyes were focused on the entrance of the cave, her expression distant and unreadable. It was as if she was waiting for something. Finally, she spoke in a low voice, barely above a whisper. "They'll find us soon. We can't stay here." Marcus turned to her, his heart pounding. "You don't seem worried. How are you so calm about this?" She met his gaze, her violet eyes piercing through the darkness. "Because I've been running from them for too long. I know what they're capable of. The question is whether you're ready for what comes next." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, a low roar of engines echoed through the cave, growing louder. The Syndicate had arrived. Marcus's instincts kicked in. He grabbed her arm, pulling her to her feet. "We need to move. We can't let them catch us." She didn't resist, but her face darkened. "We can't outrun them forever. They'll track us down." The sound of boots crunching on gravel came closer, sending a chill down Marcus's spine. He turned toward the back of the cave, where a narrow tunnel led deeper into the rock. It was their only option. He didn't wait for her to answer. Grabbing her hand, he led the way, urging her to keep up. The tunnel was tight, and they had to move quickly, squeezing past jagged rocks and sharp corners. Marcus's heart was racing as he heard the sounds of the Syndicate soldiers outside, their voices harsh and low as they searched for any sign of life. "They'll find us," the woman said, her voice almost resigned. "There's no way out." Marcus didn't stop. "We'll figure something out. We have to." As they reached the end of the tunnel, Marcus paused. The faint glow of the outside world was visible just ahead, but it wasn't a safe place. The syndicate was getting closer, and the woman's power, the one that had attracted them in the first place, was both a blessing and a curse. Suddenly, there was a loud crash, followed by the unmistakable sound of blaster fire. Marcus and the woman froze. The syndicate had found them. Her face twisted in pain, but she quickly masked it with determination. "I have to make a choice now," she said quietly, turning to face him. "I can either hide, or I can fight." Marcus stared at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" She looked him in the eye, her gaze serious. "The syndicate wants me alive, but they want the power inside me more. They won't stop until they have it. If we're going to survive this, we'll have to fight back." Marcus nodded, though fear gripped his chest. He had never been in a situation like this, but he knew one thing: he wouldn't leave her to face it alone. Together, they stepped into the light, ready for whatever came next. The fight for their survival had just begun. The cave entrance opened up to a rocky valley, bathed in the pale light of 2 distant moons. Marcus and the woman, whose name he still didn't know, moved quickly, finding cover behind boulders and cliffs. The sounds of the syndicate soldiers were growing louder as they approached, their search growing more desperate. Marcus felt the weight of their footsteps in his chest. "What do we do now?" Marcus whispered, his voice tight with fear. The woman glanced at him, her violet eyes filled with a mixture of determination and sorrow. "We need to move. There's a hidden outpost not far from here. I know the way." Without waiting for his response, she started moving, her steps confident despite the danger surrounding them. Marcus followed closely, his heart pounding in his chest. They had no time to waste. The syndicate was relentless. As they ran, Marcus couldn't help but wonder more about her. She had been strong, calm, and focused in the face of danger, but there was something beneath the surface, a sadness that seemed to haunt her every move. He could feel the tension in her shoulders, the weight of something she wasn't sharing. They stopped behind a large rock formation to catch their breath. Marcus couldn't keep quiet any longer. "What's your name?" he asked, looking at her intently. "You never told me." The woman looked at him, her eyes narrowing slightly. For a moment, it seemed like she might say nothing, but then she sighed, a quiet exhale of frustration. "Solara." Marcus nodded, taking in the name. "Solara," he repeated softly. "Why were they after you? And what did you mean about the power you carry?" Her eyes flickered with a flash of something he couldn't quite identify. Fear, perhaps, or pain. She hesitated, as though weighing whether to trust him with her story. "They call it the energy seed," Solara began, her voice low, almost inaudible against the wind. "It's an ancient power, one that my people have protected for centuries. It's the key to manipulating energy on a scale far beyond what any species should control." Marcus frowned. "You said your people betrayed you. Why? What happened?" She paused, looking away, her gaze lost in the distance. "I was part of a diplomatic mission to a distant galaxy. But when the syndicate found out about the seed, they betrayed me, leaving me stranded here. They believed that by using the seed, they could conquer other galaxies, rule the universe, but I refused to let them use it." Marcus could see the pain in her eyes, the weight of the betrayal. He couldn't imagine what it would be like to have everything she trusted ripped away from her. "What about you?" Solara asked suddenly, her voice soft but curious. "Why are you here? Why risk your life for someone you don't even know?" Marcus hesitated for a moment. He had never been one to share much about himself, but something about the quiet sincerity in her voice made him want to open up. "I'm a researcher," he said simply. "I was sent to study the planet, but when I found those energy readings, I had to know more. I didn't expect to find you, but when I did, I couldn't just leave you behind. I don't know why, but it feels like I have to help you." Solara met his gaze then, her expression softening slightly. For a moment, The tension between them eased, and in that moment, Marcus felt an unspoken connection between them, something that went beyond the danger they were facing. But the quiet moment was short-lived. The distant hum of the Syndicate's engines could still be heard, and their time was running out. "We need to move," Solera said, her voice firm again. "The outpost is close, but we're not safe yet. Not until we're out of their reach." Marcus nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of the growing connection between them. They had no choice but to keep moving forward, and they would have to face whatever came next together. Solera led Marcus through a maze of rocky terrain, her pace quick and precise, as though she had memorized every step. Marcus struggled to keep up, his mind racing with questions he hadn't dared to ask until now. The more he learned, the more confusing everything became. Why was Solera so important to the Syndicate? What was this mysterious energy seed she carried? And what had she meant by the prophecy? The two moons overhead bathed the landscape in an eerie, silvery glow as they moved deeper into the valley. The sound of the Syndicate engines grew fainter, but Marcus knew they couldn't afford to relax. Not yet. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of running, Solera stopped in front of a hidden entrance carved into the side of the mountain. She motioned for Marcus to be quiet, her eyes scanning the area as if she could sense danger before it arrived. "Here," she whispered, guiding him through the narrow doorway. Inside, the stone walls were cool and damp, and the air smelled faintly of earth. They were safe, for now. Marcus leaned against the wall, catching his breath. "What is this place?" Solera didn't answer right away. She walked deeper into the cave, her voice echoing off the walls. "This is an old outpost, a place where my people once gathered to stay hidden from those who would hunt us. It's been abandoned for centuries, but it still serves as a good hiding spot." Marcus followed her, his mind still spinning with her earlier words. The energy seed. The Syndicate is after it, but what exactly is it? Why does it matter so much? Solera stopped and turned to face him, her eyes serious. "It's more than just a weapon. It's a source of unimaginable power. Whoever controls the seed controls energy on a scale no one has ever seen before. My people have guarded it for millennia, but I was never meant to carry it." Marcus's confusion deepened. "But you said you didn't want them to use it. Why not? Why does it matter if they get it?" Solera's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing. "Because of the prophecy. I was born with the seed inside me, and it was foretold that if the seed ever bonded with a human, that human would change the course of history." Marcus blinked, stunned. "Bonded with a human? What does that mean?" She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "It means that my fate, and yours, are tied together now. The moment you found me, the prophecy began. And now it's too late for either of us to escape." Marcus felt his chest tighten. What kind of prophecy are we talking about here? Solera paused for a long moment, as if choosing her words carefully. "It's an ancient prophecy that says the bond between a human and an alien with the energy seed will either save or destroy everything. The seed has the power to bring peace to the universe, or to unravel it completely. If the Syndicate gets their hands on it, there's no telling what they will do." A chill ran down Marcus's spine. His mind struggled to grasp what Solera was saying. He had stumbled into something far bigger than he had ever imagined, and now he was caught in the middle of it. "But why me?" Marcus asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "Why would I be part of this prophecy?" Solera met his gaze, her expression softening for a brief moment. "I don't know, but it's clear now that our fates are intertwined. The seed, it reacts to emotions, to bonds. And you and I, we've already formed a connection. The moment you helped me, the moment you chose to stay, that was the first step." Marcus didn't know what to say. His world had been turned upside down in a matter of days. He had come to this planet looking for answers, but now he was part of a story much larger than himself. But one thing was clear. Whatever the prophecy said, He wasn't backing down. Not now. "We're in this together," Marcus said, his voice firm. "And I'll do whatever it takes to protect you." Solara gave a small, sad smile. "You may not have a choice, human. But thank you." They stood in silence for a moment, both understanding the weight of the journey ahead. The Syndicate would stop at nothing to get the energy seed. And now Marcus was bound to Solara in a way neither of them fully understood. But one thing was certain. The future of their worlds depended on them, and there was no turning back now. The outpost was quieter than Marcus had expected. The faint hum of the planet's distant energy sources could be heard in the background, but inside it was still. Solara moved with purpose, her steps echoing against the stone walls as she led Marcus deeper into the heart of the abandoned facility. Marcus followed closely, still processing everything she had just revealed. The prophecy, the seed, the Syndicate. His mind was racing, but his body was focused on one thing: survival. The walls of the outpost were lined with old technology, dusty and unused. Some of it Marcus recognized as part of early human exploration, the kind that had been discarded long before his time. But most of it was alien, advanced machinery that he could barely comprehend. It seemed like a relic, forgotten by the universe, yet still intact. Solara stopped in front of a sealed door, her hand hovering over a strange console. "This is where we'll be safe," she said softly. Her voice held a mixture of relief and caution. For now. Marcus glanced around, scanning their surroundings. He didn't feel completely safe, not with the Syndicate out there, still searching for them. But he trusted Solara. She had led them this far, and he couldn't imagine going anywhere else. They were in this together, whether he fully understood it or not. Solara pressed a button on the console, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside was a large, dimly lit room. The walls were covered with alien markings that Marcus couldn't decipher, but they gave the room an ancient feel, like it had been untouched for centuries. In the center of the room was a raised platform, and on it, a series of glowing symbols. "This is the heart of the outpost," Solara explained, stepping inside. "This is where the seed was kept, protected by my people. I was meant to guard it, but now..." She trailed off, her voice heavy with unspoken thoughts. Marcus stepped into the room, looking around in awe. "This place looks like it's been abandoned for a long time." Solara nodded. "It has. After the Syndicate found out about the seed, my people had to scatter. Some of us fled to different parts of the galaxy, while others were captured. Your people betrayed you," Marcus reminded her gently, his voice low. Solara's face tightened, her eyes filled with a mix of pain and regret. "Yes, but it was more than just betrayal. The Syndicate knew how to manipulate our fears, our desires. They'd promised power, control over the universe. Some of my people couldn't resist." Marcus swallowed hard. He had no idea how someone could betray their own kind for power. But now, standing in this ancient outpost, he understood how far-reaching the stakes really were. "We can't stay here for long," Solara said, her voice pulling him from his thoughts. "The Syndicate will eventually track us down. We need to prepare." Marcus nodded. "What do we need to do?" Solara walked over to the platform and placed her hand on the glowing symbols. "The seed is still inside me. I can feel it. It's waking up. I need to control it before it gets out of hand. But the Syndicate will know when that happens. They won't stop until they have it." Marcus took a deep breath, his mind shifting into problem-solving mode. "Then we need to act fast. We need a plan to throw them off our trail." Solara looked at him, her violet eyes steady. "You're right. And there's something else. I can't do this alone. The seed needs a connection to remain stable. I thought it was just the prophecy, but now I know. I need you to help me." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Me? How?" "The bond between us, the one that started when you decided to help me. That's what keeps the seed from spiraling out of control. You are part of the connection now, whether we like it or not." Marcus didn't know what to say. He had never imagined he'd be this involved in something so cosmic, so far beyond his understanding. But the fear in Solara's eyes told him this was no time for doubt. "We'll figure it out," he said, determination creeping into his voice. "I'll do whatever it takes to help you." Solara gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. For a brief moment, the tension in her body seemed to ease, as though she finally felt the weight of the burden shared between them. But that relief was short-lived. From outside, the faint sound of engines reached their ears once again. The syndicate was still out there, and they weren't giving up. "We don't have much time," Solara said, her voice hardening. "Prepare yourself, Marcus. The fight is only beginning." The silence in the outpost was unnerving, broken only by the faint hum of the ancient machines around them. Marcus stood beside Solara, watching her as she focused on the glowing symbols on the platform. He could see the concentration on her face, the way her fingers trembled slightly as she touched the energy lines. It was clear that the seed was doing something to her, something powerful, something dangerous. Marcus clenched his fists, trying to focus. He had never been in a situation like this before. Back home, his work was safe, theoretical, nothing like this. But now he was in the middle of a galactic struggle, and he couldn't turn back. The stakes were too high. "We don't have much time," Solara said, her voice cutting through his thoughts. "The syndicate will be here soon, and once they know I've activated the seed, they won't rest until they have it." Marcus nodded. He was starting to realize just how dangerous this was. The syndicate wasn't just a group of mercenaries. They were a threat to the entire galaxy, and they would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. "What do we do?" Marcus asked, trying to push the fear in his chest down. "How do we stop them?" Solara turned to face him, her eyes hard. "We fight back. The syndicate thinks they can just take what they want, but they don't know who they're dealing with." She paused for a moment, her expression darkening. "The seed is more powerful than they realize. If we can use it against them, we might have a chance." Marcus felt a chill run through him. "Use it? How?" Solara took a deep breath and walked over to one of the walls of the outpost, where a set of alien weapons were stored. "The seed has the ability to manipulate energy, but I've never been able to control it fully. It reacts to emotions, connections. It needs something or someone to anchor it." Marcus stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "And you want me to be that anchor?" Solara nodded. "Yes. The connection between us, the bond we share, it's the key. If I can draw on that bond, I can control the seed long enough to create a weapon powerful enough to stop the syndicate. But it will take everything I have, and everything you're willing to give." Marcus didn't hesitate. He didn't know what kind of weapon they were talking about, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to let Solara face this alone. He had already come too far to turn back. "Let's do it," he said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Solara gave him a quick, grateful look before turning back to the platform. She reached out with both hands, touching the glowing symbols once again. The air around them crackled, as if the very atmosphere had changed. Marcus felt a surge of energy in the room, almost like static electricity, but stronger. He could feel the power between them, real and undeniable. "Stay close," Solara said, her voice tense. "I need your help to focus." Marcus stepped closer, his heart pounding. As he stood beside her, he felt an intense pull, as if the very fabric of the universe was aligning around them. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he trusted Solara. He could feel her emotions, her fear, her determination, and he matched them with his own. He had never felt so connected to anyone, not like this. The symbols on the platform flared with light, and suddenly, the entire room was filled with a brilliant, blinding glow. Marcus felt the energy surge through him, into his chest, and into his very soul. It was overwhelming, but he held on. "I need you to stay focused," Solara said, her voice barely audible over the hum of power that filled the room. "This is the only chance we'll get." Marcus nodded, his mind clearer than ever. He could feel the seed's power, and it was terrifying, but also beautiful. Together, they were forming something incredible. The connection between them was real, stronger than anything he had ever known. And in that moment, he knew they could face whatever came next. Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. The syndicate was closing in. But Marcus and Solara were ready. They had a plan. And now, it was time to fight back. The room hummed with energy, the glow from the platform casting eerie shadows across the walls. Marcus could feel the power surging through him and Solara, their bond more tangible than ever. The seed had awakened, its energy pulsing in the air, filling the space with a crackling intensity that made his skin tingle. He had never felt anything like it before. Raw, untamed power, flowing through him like a storm. Outside, the engines of the syndicate's ships roared closer. He could hear the faint echoes of their boots on the rocky surface, their search closing in on the outpost. Time was running out. "We don't have much time," Solara said, her voice trained but determined. She stood in front of the platform, her hands still pressed against the glowing symbols, guiding the flow of energy. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her body trembled slightly from the sheer force of what she was controlling. Marcus moved closer to her, feeling the weight of the moment. How do we use this power against them? Solara didn't look at him, but kept her focus on the symbols. The seed responds to emotions, connections. It will amplify whatever we feel. Fear, anger, love, it can all be used. But I can't do it alone. I need you to help me focus. Marcus swallowed, his heart pounding. He had never been part of something this dangerous before. But there was no turning back now. They were both in this, no matter what. "Okay," he said, his voice steady. "What do I need to do?" She looked at him, her eyes glowing with a mix of gratitude and urgency. "Stay with me. Stay connected. I'll guide the power, but you have to keep the bond strong. The syndicate is coming, and they won't stop until they have me. Or worse, if we're going to survive, we need to fight back." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He could feel the fear inside her, the desperation to survive. And he understood now, more than ever, how much this meant, not just for them, but for the galaxy itself. The seed was more than just a weapon. It was a key to either saving everything or destroying it all. As the ground beneath their feet vibrated, Solara took a deep breath and closed her eyes. The energy around them flared, growing brighter, hotter. Marcus could feel the power intensifying, and for a brief moment, he thought he might collapse from the weight of it. But he held on, grounding himself in the bond between them. The syndicate had arrived. The doors to the outpost blasted open with a deafening crash, and soldiers in black armor stormed in, blasters drawn. They spread out, scanning the room for their target. Marcus could hear their leader barking orders. "Find her. The seed must be ours." Solara opened her eyes, her expression fierce. "Now, Marcus. Now." Without thinking, Marcus reached out, placing his hand on the platform beside hers. He could feel the seed's energy surge, reacting to their combined focus. In an instant, a wave of energy shot out from the platform, crashing into the syndicate soldiers with a force that knocked them off their feet. The room was filled with blinding light as the energy pulse rippled outward, tearing through the walls, the ceiling, the very air itself. The syndicate soldiers screamed, their weapons useless against the overwhelming power. One by one, they fell, unable to stand against the energy that was now fully in control. But it wasn't over. The leader, a tall figure with a cold, calculating expression, stepped forward, his blaster raised. "You think you can stop us?" he sneered, his voice filled with venom. "You're just one alien and a human. You're nothing." Solara's eyes flared with determination. She stepped forward, her hand raised to unleash another blast of energy. But Marcus could feel it. She was draining. The power of the seed was too much for her to hold for long. "Solara," Marcus called, reaching out to steady her, but she didn't falter. "We finish this now." With a final, concentrated burst, the leader was thrown back, crashing into the stone wall, his weapon falling uselessly to the ground. The rest of the Syndicate soldiers lay scattered, incapacitated by the sheer force of the blast. The room fell into silence, broken only by the sound of their ragged breathing. Marcus stood beside Solara, both of them trembling from the energy they had just unleashed. "We did it," Marcus said, his voice shaky but filled with relief. Solara looked at him, a small smile breaking through her exhaustion. "For now. But this fight is far from over. The Syndicate will regroup, and they won't stop until they have what they came for." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of her words. But for the first time since all of this began, he wasn't afraid. They had faced the Syndicate together, and they had won. But the war was just beginning, and they would need each other more than ever. "Then we'll keep fighting," Marcus said, his voice firm. "Together." The aftermath of the battle was eerie. The once vibrant energy in the room had dissipated, leaving an almost unnatural stillness behind. Solara and Marcus stood among the wreckage, the faint hum of the damaged machinery the only sound filling the space. The Syndicate soldiers, now unconscious or incapacitated, lay scattered on the cold stone floor. It had been a victory, but the cost was clear. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest as he turned to Solara. She was standing beside the platform, her body slumped with exhaustion. Her breathing was shallow, her movements slow as she tried to steady herself. The power of the seed had taken a toll on her. He could see it now. Her once steady hands trembled, and her face was pale, beads of sweat dotting her forehead. "Solara," he said, his voice filled with concern as he stepped toward her. "Are you okay?" She looked up at him, her violet eyes dimmer than before, as if the energy she had unleashed had drained more from her than she had let on. A weak smile appeared on her lips. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice cracked. "It's just the seed." The air outside the outpost was thick with tension as Marcus and Solara stepped into the cold alien landscape. The remnants of their battle still lay behind them. Syndicate soldiers knocked out, their weapons abandoned. But they knew that this victory, as hard-won as it had been, was only temporary. The Syndicate was relentless. They would come back, and this time they would be ready. Solara, her face pale and her steps slow, walked beside Marcus. The seed inside her still pulsed with energy, but it was clear the cost of controlling it had taken its toll. Her strength had diminished after the battle, and Marcus could feel her fatigue. It wasn't just the seed's power that drained her. It was the emotional connection between them that was tying them both to its unstable energy. "Are you sure you're okay?"